Hey, very on welcome to that channel. Today's video is a bit different. I am going to share a story that still gives me chills just thinking about it. The story of my worst crash scare. This isn't about glorifying dangerous driving. It's about a moment that fundamentally changed how I view the road, my car, and my own vulnerability. It's a story about a split-second decision that could have ended everything. So, set the scene. It was a couple of years ago, late autumn. The leaves were turning, and that beautiful, but treacherous, layer of damp foliage was starting to cover the back roads. I was driving my old Pride and Joy, a car I knew like the back of my hand. I was on my way to meet some friends, taking a scenic route I'd driven 100 times before. It was one of those perfect driving days, crisp air, good music on the stereo, and just the open road ahead. I was feeling confident, maybe a little too confident. The road was a winding two-lane country road, lots of blind corners, dips, and crests. I was coming up to a particularly tight right-hand bend, one that I knew had a bit of a negative camber. I wasn't speeding, but I was carrying a decent pace, enjoying the flow of the drive. As première tournée every fade normal for a fraction, and then it happened. The rear of the car just let. It was that sickening, lurching feeling when you know you're no longer in control. The back tires had hit a patch of wet leaves hidden under the tree cover, and it was like driving on sheer ice. The car snapped into a massive oversteer, and suddenly, I was looking at the scenery I had just passed through my driver's side window. The world went into slow motion. I remember the gravelly sound of the tires desperately trying to find grip, the smell of burnt rubber, and the absolute, deafening silence inside my head. In that instant, my mind was racing, but it was also crystal clear. It's funny how your brain processes things under extreme stress. I wasn't thinking about my friends, my family, or my life flashing before my eyes. All I could think was, countersteer, don't lift, don't brake. Every track day, every lesson, every bit of advice I'd ever received about car control flooded my brain. My hands flew on the wheel, instinctively applying opposite lock. It's a move you practice, but you pray you never have to use it for real. I remember seeing the ditch on the inside of the corner getting bigger and bigger in my peripheral vision. Then, as I countersteered, the car started to swing back the other way. This is the part they call the tank slapper, the pendulum effect. The rear regained grip for a millisecond, and it whipped the car violently in the opposite direction. Now, I was sliding towards the oncoming lane. My heart was in my throat. Through the windshield, I saw a pair of headlights cresting the hill just ahead. It was a massive pickup truck. Time stretched out. I could see the shocked expression on the other driver's face, their hands gripping their steering wheel. That was the moment I thought, this is it. There was nowhere to go. On my left, a ditch. On my right, a truck that would have turned my car into a tin can. My body was still working on autopilot. I feathered the throttle just a tiny bit, trying to balance the car, trying to scrub off speed without locking the brakes, which would have been the end. I gave another correction on the steering wheel, a smaller, more delicate input this time. The car was fishtailing wildly, bucking like an untamed horse. It felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was probably only 2 or 3 seconds. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it was over. The tires finally bit down on a dry patch of asphalt. The car straightened up with a final, violent shudder. I was now back in my lane, pointing in the right direction, with the truck blowing past me, horn blaring. I pulled over onto the shoulder, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. My legs felt like jelly. I just sat there, breathing heavily, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The music was still playing softly, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. I got out of the car to check for damage. Miraculously, there wasn't a scratch. The tires were a bit scuffed, but that was it. I walked back to the corner and saw the skid marks painted across the road, a black, snaking testament to how close I had come. I saw the patch of wet leaves, innocently sitting there, looking completely harmless. It was a humbling sight. It wasn't about the car's limit or my driving skill. It was about the unpredictable nature of the road and the environment. The driver of the truck had pulled over a little way down the road. He got out and walked back towards me. I was expecting him to be furious, and he had every right to be. But when he got closer, I could see he was just as shaken as I was. He asked if I was okay, his voice a little shaky. We just stood there for a minute, two strangers connected by a shared moment of sheer terror. We didn't say much else. A nod of understanding passed between us, and he went back to his truck and drove away. That drive home was the slowest, most careful drive of my life. Every corner, every patch of shade on the road made me flinch. The incident completely recalibrated my internal speedometer and my sense of risk. It taught me a profound lesson. You can be the best driver in the world with the best car. But you can never, ever beat physics, and you can never predict every variable. The road demands constant respect. That scare wasn't just a close call. It was a wake-up call. It reminded me that driving is a privilege, and with it comes a massive responsibility. We share the road with others, and one moment of overconfidence or one lapse in concentration can have devastating consequences. It's not about being scared to drive. It's about being smart, aware, and humble enough to know that you are never fully in control of everything. It's about respecting the conditions, your vehicle's limits, and most importantly, your own. So, that's my story. I wanted to share it not for the drama, but for the lesson learned. Always stay vigilant, respect the conditions, and never, ever get complacent behind the wheel. It only takes a second for everything to change. Drive safe out there, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. If you have a similar story or a lesson you've learned on the road, I'd love to read about it in the comments. It's good for us to share these experiences. If you found this valuable, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content. It really helps me out. Until next time, take care.